Hi everyone, I hope you're all staying safe at home. Well, the virus spread and all is escalating now, so take good care. Today we are going to do the second chapter of Hornbill. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together. And here you can see it's written by Gordon Cook and Alan East. And this is a story about a journey by sea, a very adventurous journey by sea. In this journey, our narrator is going with his family on a ship. In this, the narrator is talking about his journey by sea. This was a 3-year journey that he had planned, and he was taking his family with him. But in the first paragraph, he also mentions that he's trying to duplicate the journey undertaken by James Cook 200 years ago. So we all know about Captain James Cook, who circumnavigated the globe for 3 years, from 1772 to 1775. So our narrator is also planning a journey of that type. That's why he has planned it for 3 years, and it's going to be 105,000 kilometers. So he starts off the first paragraph by describing his family. In July 1976, my wife Mary, son Jonathan, 6 years old, daughter Suzanne, 7, and I set sail from Plymouth, England. And in the last line he says that for the past 16 years we had spent all our leisure time honing our seafaring skills in British waters. Which means that they were practicing, they were perfecting their seafaring skills. Seafarers are people who travel by sea. So they were making all the preparations for this journey for the past 16 years. And the name of the boat that they made is Wave Walker, and the boat is also described in the second paragraph. The Wave Walker, which is a 23-meter, 30-ton wooden hull beauty and professionally built. And in the third paragraph, we see that he is mentioning that the first leg of their journey was towards Cape Town, from Plymouth to Cape Town. Plymouth is in England, so that's where they belong. And from there, they started their journey in July 1976, and they travelled to Cape Town, which was the first phase of their journey, and from there they took 2 more people on board, 2 more crewmen to help them on their journey. One was an American and the other was a Swiss. So these are the details given on the first page, in the first 3 paragraphs. In the next paragraph, he's describing that after they left Cape Town towards east, they had to encounter strong winds, and the height of the waves were going up to 15 feet. So the journey that they started in July, now it is December, and on December 25th, they celebrated Christmas and they also celebrated New Year on the ship. Until then, the weather was almost okay, but after that, they encountered rough seas. The waves were gigantic. In the next page, we understand that because of strong gales, they were expecting the sea to get rough. They didn't face any problems until then, but it was on January 2. The waves were gigantic. Next 3 paragraphs The narrator is describing how they made preparations to make the ship safe in case it would capsize. But still, he was thrown overboard. That means he fell into the water, he almost drowned, but he came back up and he was saved. 14th third paragraph, we can see the narrator describing all the things that he did to make sure that the ship will be safe even if there is a huge storm. So these are the preparations they made to keep the ship safe. So we read here, to slow the boat down, we dropped the storm jib and lashed a heavy mooring rope in a loop across the stern. Then we double lashed everything, went through our life raft drill, attached lifelines, donned oilskins and life jackets and waited. So here are some terms used by sailors, and it's all about the parts of the ship and several other nautical terms. So please look up the meanings and try to understand it clearly. The first indication of impending disaster came at about 6 p.m. with an ominous silence. Ominous silence refers to something not auspicious. So it is at 6 p.m. that actually the big storm struck. But first the wind dropped. The sky immediately grew dark. And here again you come across another word that describes a part of the ship, which is actually referring to the rear of the ship, and the word used here is aft. Isn't it interesting to know the different words used to describe parts of a ship? I'm sure it will help to improve your vocabulary and also your knowledge. So I hope you will look up all these words in the dictionary. The second last paragraph on page 14, we read how the narrator got back into the boat. And here he describes, my head popped out of the water a few meters away. Wave walker was near capsizing. That means the boat also was almost capsizing. Her mast almost horizontal. Then a wave hurled her upright and my lifeline jerked taut. I grabbed the guardrails, sailed through the air into Wave Walker's main boom. He says he sailed through the air. That means he almost flew back into the boat. That is with the force of the wave. Subsequent waves tossed me around the deck like a rag doll. But again the waves kept tossing him around on the deck and he broke his ribs. My left ribs cracked, my mouth filled with blood and broken teeth. Somehow I found the wheel and lined up the stern for the next wave and hung on. But even though he was badly injured, he still took hold of the wheel and he tried to navigate the ship. Now it was water everywhere. Then his wife comes to him and says that we are sinking. The decks are smashed and we are full of water. And then we read Larry and Herb were pumping like madmen. They were pumping the water out of the boat because the hull was smashed and then water was getting into the boat. And they were trying to use a pump to pump the water out. It's in page 15 that we read about what the narrator did to make sure that the ship won't sink. So he first asked his wife to take the wheel, and then he went to check on his children in their cabin, and we see that Sue is telling him that she has a big bump above her eyes and it hurts. But the narrator is more concerned about sailing the ship. So he sees that Larry and Herb were pumping like madmen. They were pumping the water out of the deck Here again we come across some words used to describe the ship. Starboard side, which actually refers to the right side of the ship. And here he sees that it was bulged inwards, clothes, crockery, charts, tins and toys sloshed about in deep water. That means all the things that they had stored in the cabin, it was all now floating in the water. So he had to now close some holes which were there in the ship, through which water was entering. So for that he takes some hammer, screws and canvas, and he covers the holes. Then he sees that there is one more problem that he has to tackle. More problems arose when our hand pumps started to block up with the debris. Debris is the unwanted things that were floating in the water, and that was now blocking the pumps. And electric pump short circuited, so it had stopped working. Now he went to look for 2 more pumps, but they were all wrenched overboard, along with the forestay sail, the jib, the dinghies and the main anchor. Then he remembered that they had another electric pump, so he went and took it out. Thankfully it worked. They were continuing this activity of pumping water out and closing the holes and all. And along with it, they were sending mayday calls. Mayday calls are the call for help to save the ship, which is sent through radio, and which is usually taken by other boats or any other ports nearby, and they will send help. But here we see that they were not getting any replies to their mayday calls because they were in a remote corner of the world. We end the first section. Sue is saying that she had more injuries other than the one on the head. Her hand was also injured, but she did not tell about that to her father because she did not want him to worry. I didn't want to worry you when you were trying to save us all. So it is with this statement that the first section ends. So we'll continue the chapter in the next class. Until then, I hope you will all check out all the new words that you have come across in this chapter. Words connected to sailing and boats and ships and all. So that's the assignment for you. Until we meet again, have a nice day.